Hey Forge Fiends, welcome into Forge Master Metal Reviews. This is the place where you get the most out of your metal releases. But obviously today, we are expanding our horizons a bit more than just metal and metal subgenres. For more lists, reactions, reviews, and interviews, be sure to pummel the like button because it really helps to spread this and our other videos to more fans like yourself. So, what are some of the best albums outside of our typical wheelhouse? I'm going to be talking about some of those today, some of our favorite non-metal albums of 2021. Be sure to leave yours down below. Let's get to the list. One of the best records of the year was Crown, with The End of All Things. Not to be confused with thrash death metalers The Crown. Crown are an electronic post-rock group that have been compared, rightfully so, to acts like Radiohead and Depeche Mode. Their music is bleak, dark, moody, introspective. All the stuff that we love here at Forge Master Metal Reviews. Sometimes I don't want high-gain guitars with some guy with huge traps shouting at me.
Do it! Faster! Faster, go!
Sometimes I want to be taken on a majestic journey through the human experience, and that's exactly what this album does. Front to back, this is a perfect record. The pacing is flawless. The songwriting and compositions are just master level. The album just flows and brings you through a multitude of emotions, feelings, and rumination. Sonically, this is one of the best records I've heard all year. It is just a total soundscape with audio tricks that will keep you engaged for hundreds of listens. Easily one of my favorite records of 2021, The End of All Things gets a perfect score, 5 out of 5 digital landscapes. Don't pass this one up. Do it now! Being a huge fan of Godspeed, You Black Emperor for quite some time, I have been following them very closely since their 2010 reunion. Since coming back together, the godfathers of cinematic post-rock have gifted us with 4 epic albums, with their latest being Godspeed at State's End. If you're not familiar with Godspeed, You Black Emperor, first of all, let me say that I am jealous and I wish that I could re-listen to them again for the first time. This is a Quebecian post-rock band that takes elements heavily from classical, but also mixes in some drone and experimental influences, mashing them together to what can only be described as a soundtrack to your post-apocalyptic nightmares. At State's End is a slow burn for sure, but there are heavy rewards in this album, as they display that they are truly the kings and queens of building anticipation for dozens of minutes, only to shove you off a cliff where you soar with the melodies that catch you on eagle's wings. There is no shortage of awesome melodies on this record. This is a fantastic post-rock album with a couple of really standout songs with said strong melodies. Really looking forward to seeing them in concert in 2022. It's a totally spiritual experience. It's my equivalent to going to church. If you've not seen them live, you have to do this. At State's End gets 4.4 out of 5 social collapses. Emma Ruth Rundle is a musician that got her start in the post-rock scene, but has been dipping her toes into the more extreme metal scene as of late with her collaboration with Southern sludge doomsters Thou. Emma's solo album, Engine of Hell, is a viciously dark record that totally deserves a spot on this list. It is a haunting and morose album that has been acoustically designed to make you feel like you're sitting in a room with Emma as she conjures up her demons. The more I listen to this record, the more I feel enchanted by its sorrow. This is an album that I have to put alongside sorrowful and acoustic greats like Jar of Flies by Alice in Chains. Both albums, as I said, acoustic, but they also showcase very raw, vulnerable lyrics and themes encased by beautiful pieces of melancholic unrefined music. 4.7 out of 5 Recollections of Trauma is what I am giving Engine of Hell. This is one of my favorites in terms of just originality and raw emotion. Heavy as fuck, without a single lick of high-gain guitars or screams or blast beats in that traditional extreme metal manner. This is metal in its most unrefined form. Is An Astronaut is an Irish post-rock and ambient band that has put out some of my favorite records of all time. And I was very excited to see that they are releasing their 9th studio album this year called Ghost Tapes No. 10, surprisingly on Napalm Records, and it was put out back in February. Since signing to Napalm Records in 2018, the band has really leaned into their heavier and darker side. For example, at the end of the song Spectres, the drummer unleashes into a really unexpected triplet part with the kick drum, something that you don't typically hear from this band, and they only do it once on this record, which makes it really genuine and unique versus splattering it throughout the whole album. Upon first listening, I remember being less than thrilled, though, thinking that they were trying to emulate maybe Pelican or Russian Circles with the heavier, instrumental post-metal stuff. After taking a break from it, though, I realized that Is An Astronaut is just exploring new avenues of their music and speaking to the fans of their new label. Their unique, contemplative atmosphere is never pushed out of the way for the heaviness and grit. That's one of the reasons why I love this band. They always want to keep that contemplative atmosphere regardless of where they're going with the music. I'm giving Ghost Tapes No. 10 4.5 out of 5 Falling Airplanes.
That's what's coming. That's what's coming unless we take bold action. It's what will happen unless...
Post-rockers Maybeshewill fucking delighted me with their 5th studio album and first album in 7 years, No Feeling Is Final. This record is a total parallel of the human experience. There are moments of calm tranquility as you're carried along by beautiful soundscapes. Suddenly you've lost your footing and you find yourself crashing down a stony hill. You've split your head open on the way down and there's blood everywhere. But you keep going, because you had an objective all this time, although it may not be entirely visible to anyone but yourself. This record feels like that sort of journey, and it begs for us to end our complacency about things that should really matter, like taking care of our environment, taking care of one another, feeding the hungry, sheltering the cold, human things. There's a lot of reckoning and explorations of how we can make up for our tragic mistakes against mankind and our world as a whole on this record. I love this album. I can't not talk about it without allegories and metaphors. This is one of the heavier albums on this list because there's a lot of syncopation and high-gain guitars. So if you want something with a bit more punch mixed with electronic elements, check out No Feeling Is Final. This record gets 4.6 out of 5 Weeping Earth Mothers. Scottish post-rockers Mogwai, one of my favorites of all time, have been quietly putting out some of the coolest post and space rock since grunge faded away in the mid-90s. Their early stuff reminds me of bands like My Bloody Valentine, Failure, or The Pixies. Also, Failure came out with an awesome album this year. Really good. They carry on that atmospheric but post-punk sort of vibe. As the Love Continues is Mogwai's 10th studio album, and it is mostly an instrumental record. This album proves to me that Mogwai is not shy to reach into their own chests, pull out their fucking guts, and just lay it all out on the table for us. I gotta say that the song duo that is Dry Fantasy into Richie Sacramento is quite possibly the best 9.5 minutes I can spend with any two songs this year. You don't usually hear vocals on a Mogwai album, so that really makes this track stand out. As I said, this is one of my favorite albums of the year. It really deserves your attention. If you enjoyed last year's Crippled Black Phoenix record, you're gonna feel right at home with this one. Despite the majority of this one being mostly instrumental, you're gonna feel very at home because the vibe is so similar. Mogwai's As the Love Continues is getting 4.7 out of 5 Lurking White Foxes. This is one of my favorites on this list, and a few of these songs are easily some of my favorite songs of 2021.
You have been disappointed.
Genghis Tron's Dream Weapon was an absolutely unexpected surprise. Last I heard from this band, they were doing shitty math rock that I just couldn't get into because it wasn't very good. It was too chaotic, juvenile, and flashy with zero soul. I don't even know who this fucking band is compared to those other albums, because Genghis Tron have completely sidestepped their juvenile bullshit into more thought-provoking and experimental territory. Like many of the other great post-rock electronic albums on this list, this record captured me with total absolution. It's a stunning album. If you like your songs to be percussion-driven and interwoven with incredible synth and guitar parts, you're in for a treat here. Hell, you don't even have to like post-rock to enjoy this album. This is a super accessible record that really should be heard by everybody. Dream Weapon gets a perfect score from me. 5 out of 5 neural net processors. Do yourself a favor, if you haven't already, check this one out. Kauan's Ice Fleet got some really well-deserved attention this year. This Russian-based band is back with their unique form of atmospheric music. Ice Fleet was released April 9th on Artifact Records. This is a band that has consistently developed their sound over the years, but they've always delivered a very moody and heavy atmosphere on their albums. The atmosphere really makes you feel as if you've been pulled out to sea after your ship has been capsized in icy waters, and you're barely surviving in these frigid waters as you cling to driftwood. While this is a very atmospheric and fantastic record, I do feel as if they weren't entirely locked in to all the transitions between the atmospheric sections in the black gaze and musical sections. They are a bit sporadic, they're a bit jarring. I wish the transitions had been a little bit smoother to allow the music to kind of blend with the atmosphere, but maybe this is an intentional thing that I just didn't get the first time around or whatever. The album, however, is masterfully paced with 7 songs at 41 minutes. It really begs to be played more than once. I'm going to use a term coined by Necrotic Nick over at Thralls of Metal. This is perfect nighttime driving music. I'm giving Ice Fleet 4 out of 5 floating sea vessels. Deafheaven's Infinite Granite is a large step away from the extreme and has landed right here on my favorite less than metal albums of 2021. The black metal parts on this record are very few and far between, but I wouldn't write this off entirely as a non-metal album. This is probably the most metal album on this list, if anything. There are definite black gaze influences, there are distorted guitars and dissonance, so yeah, this isn't as much in the post-rock or electronic territory as many of the other picks on here. Deafheaven has truly found something unique and sincere with Infinite Granite, and while the elitists have long turned their backs on this band, I'm happy to embrace this new and beautiful Deafheaven. The atmosphere, unbeatable. I love the decision to go with the clean singing and really roping in those black gaze influences. This record begs for repeat listens, and my score is 4.8 out of 5 transcending beings. This means that this is Album of the Year material, definitely one of my favorites of 2021. Keep after it, Deafheaven. I'm loving this trajectory. Lingua Ignota, Sinner Get Ready is my final pick for today. This is the 4th studio album by Kristen Hayter under the moniker of Lingua Ignota, a reference to Roman Catholicism iconography. First of all, I gotta say, I love the connections to Rhode Island here. I'm a Rhode Islander myself. Kristen was educated in Rhode Island, and the record was recorded at Machines with Magnets in Pawtucket. I love learning about local connections, and I'm going to point them out anytime I am aware of them. Sinner Get Ready may be Kristen's most powerful collection of survivor anthems to date. There is an awesome mix of electronic, folk, and standard rock instruments on this record. The Appalachian folk elements come off really strong, along with the blend of traditional worship music that you might hear in an old church somewhere in Eastern Europe. You can tell that Kristen is a classically trained musician with her dynamic use of call and response, melody, dissonance, and just overall song composition. Beyond being classically trained, her extreme influences really bleed into the music, creating an absolutely harrowing listening experience. This is a spiritual experience that not a lot of metal albums can pull off. Sinner Get Ready gets 4.5 out of 5 Pennsylvania Furnaces. Thanks for sticking with me on today's video, folks. We want to know, what are some of your favorite less than metal albums? Do you like some hip hop? Do you want to list some pop albums? Fucking go for it. List them down in the comments below. As always, go with the gods, our Forge Master brethren. We'll see you at State's End. Take care.
Oh boy.